Australian rules football is a fast and exciting sport indigenous to Australia. It is similar to a mixture of American football and rugby. The AFL is the governing body of Australian rules and is currently the most successful sporting organisation in Australia. It is the market leader in terms of revenue, television rights, attendance, participation and public interest. But it hasn't always been this way. Historically, the game was characterised by low attendances and all-male crowds with a reputation for alcohol abuse, violence and even racism. Some clubs were also struggling financially. This all began to change, however, with the arrival of new leadership at the AFL in the early 1980s.
When I came into the AFL, there were 4 things that I needed to fix. The first was governance.
So the most important thing right now for football is to look after the traditional base in Victoria. It's where all the constituents are.
We need more games
in Western Australia!
The old representative and politically appointed board was disbanded and a new independent commission of corporate leaders was installed to govern the game.
You're fired! Get out of here! And stay out! The second part of our plan was geographical expansion.
For over 100 years, Australian winter sport was segregated into 2 distinct markets. In the 1980s, the AFL aggressively expanded into its rivals' territories. The move caught the inward-looking rugby league completely by surprise, as it never expected AFL to take it on its own turf.
The next thing we did was we cleaned up the game, making the game more available to a wider, broader support base.
To clean up the alcohol problem, the AFL banned the sale of full-strength beer at games. It was the first sport in Australia to do so. This went a long way to improving the spectator at-match experience for women and children. The AFL also sought to battle racism in all forms that had previously penetrated the game. In particular, they supported 2 of the best-known Aboriginal players, Nicky Winmar and Michael Long, after they received racial abuse from crowds in 1989. This kick-started the introduction of one of the most far-sighted anti-racism programs in world sport, years ahead of similar programs in rugby, cricket or soccer. The program has since been copied by UEFA, and a huge increase in minority participation in Australian rules football can be traced back to this period. Another measure the AFL introduced to broaden the sport's fan base was a junior program named Auskick. The Auskick program attracted over 100,000 primary school-aged participants annually and is a major reason why 65% of Australian high school students now place Aussie rules in their top 3 favourite sports.
Equalisation was also important.
The AFL also sought to ensure a high standard of competition and fairness between clubs by introducing salary caps and draft rules that prevented any team from dominating the sport. The result has been that no team has won the league more than 3 times in the last 20 years. Through the initiatives discussed, the AFL has clearly been more focused on exploration in the last 20 years than any of its peers. They have had the strategic agility to target new markets and implement several new initiatives 2 to 10 years ahead of their main competitors. This speed of implementation in particular allowed them to overtake both rugby and cricket by every measure, even though Aussie rules lagged behind both of these sports for the previous 100 years.